All right, so now what we're going to do is create the video embeds into our templates. We're actually going to display them finally. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and jump into templates and create a new folder called videos, and inside of there we'll call it embed.html. And now this is actually pretty simple. We'll go ahead and say if video ID and then else and then end if. So if it's else, then we'll go ahead and say video is coming soon. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and give it h1 and say video ID and just render out that video ID. Okay. So how are we actually going to use this embed HTML? Well, if we go into playlists for our movies, for example, we should be able to do object.get movie ID now that we've created that instance method. But even that, I should probably even be able to use get video ID, both of which should actually render out some sort of video. So with this, I'll go ahead and do include, and this include tag we'll use for videos/embed.html, and then we'll pass in the argument of with video ID equals to the object.get video ID. And we close off that with curly brackets. And there we go. So if we take a look at this movie now, and oops, I need to set that equal right next to each other. Otherwise we get that error here. Refresh there, and there we go. So we've got a video ID ABC123. Okay, great. So this should actually handle whether or not it's published. But before I check that, I actually want to talk about what I'm going to be using for actually displaying the videos themselves. So you might be tempted to come into the embed and say something like video source equals to, path to my video, and then, video ID. Now, this is actually really, really tempting to do, or using something like the actual source tag, so you can have a bunch of different videos in here, or a bunch of different sources for videos in here. This is incredibly tempting to do, but the problem with this is it requires you to have the actual source set up. Now you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to just use Django to do that. I'll have Django do my static files and render out this video. And you shouldn't do that. That's like the absolute opposite of what you should do. Django itself should not be serving static files. You should use another server for that. I'll explain what in just a moment. But the idea is that Django is really good at a lot of things, but serving static files, that is images, videos, JavaScript, CSS, Django is not built for that. And if you do those things, it's likely going to be incredibly insecure. In other words, if this video path right here was an actual URL route that you create in Django and render out this video, technically it will probably work, but you shouldn't do it because it's insecure and most likely incredibly inefficient. So what should you do instead? Well, if we look back into our to-do list, this is a future item, but you can actually use Nginx to stream with FFmpeg. So Nginx is this kind of configuration that will allow you to have both a Django application and other kinds of static file servers right next to that Django application. So then you would actually be able to use, myapp.com/media/my-video.mp4 or whatever right next to myapp.com/everything else with Django. That's what Nginx would allow you to be able to do, is actually declare specific paths that would go towards the FFmpeg sharing of it all. But that is actually not a trivial thing to do, or trivial to do well, right? So the other part of this with videos themselves is something called encoding. Videos have a lot of different options on how they can be produced, recorded, and exported. MP4 is often the most common way to do it, but even that might not be encoded correctly or in the right way for it to stream online, to actually view it online. So it's definitely not a trivial task to actually try to use the HTML video source tag. It can be done, but to do it really well, it takes a lot of work beyond just Django, And a lot of times it's going to be inside of DevOps or operations, like your actual servers and how you can actually handle all of those things. Now, luckily for us, there are third parties that we can use, both free and paid ones, that we can use to accomplish roughly the same thing. And to me, the name of the game is getting traction. So the more traction you get, the more you can play with the options you have for actually displaying your videos. YouTube, to me, is the obvious one because you could embed a YouTube video, which is what we'll do in a moment, for free, and you can have it private. Like you can actually have it not shared on YouTube at large. Wistia, I used them for a long time. I no longer use them. They started getting too expensive. But Wistia was a great option too because you have API control over some of these videos. Vimeo, I really like Vimeo. It's what I'm using now. That is a great option as well, also for that API. But that is actually hosting the video and playing it. What we can also do is build on top of the hosting and playing and build our own video analytics tool using JavaScript. Right? So Django itself is not going to be handling the video analytics. It can handle part of the equation, but it's not going to actually get how much a user has watched. JavaScript would do that. Django would handle the fact that the user watched a certain amount. JavaScript would actually get the actual number that they've watched. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and actually create this video embed. And on any given YouTube video, I'm going to go ahead and use this one. This is one of my videos. And I'll click on share, go into embed, and I'll just copy this entire embed here. And we'll paste it in here. Now, what you should notice with this video embed is the only thing that's actually really related to YouTube is this right here. Sure, there's this title tag, but even if you didn't have that, this video would still render. All this allow stuff, sure, if you didn't have that, this video should in theory still render. I mean, we might need to test it out, but the general idea here is now we have a way to actually embed a video into our project. So I can use this now video embed here and paste it in place of the original embed tag. So really the script source right here, youtube.com/embed/ whatever that video ID is going to be how you're going to do that. Now to get video IDs, they're on every single video. So usually, if you look in the video itself, it looks like this. It says V equals, and then whenever you see an ampersand or the and sign here, that means it's the end. So in between equals and the ampersand, that's going to be your video ID. So that is what we replace on the embed. Cool. YouTube makes it really easy to embed their videos. That's part of their service, of course. All right, so now that we've got this, let's go ahead and check our movie detail now. And I'll refresh in here. And I do have a YouTube embed working, although this is not a real video. So if I try to play it, it gives me this error has occurred. So that's actually nice that that exists. And it does exist in a lot of these other services that I mentioned, like Wistia and Vimeo. If you actually embed a video that's invalid, at least something will show up there in most cases. Maybe not always, because obviously these services change over time. But YouTube has done this for a really, really long time. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this video. I'm going to change each one of these videos to a valid YouTube video. And I'm literally going to use the same one on all of them. Okay. But I can't. I created validation to prevent that from happening. Okay, so let's go jump back into my channel and just grab a few other videos instead. And here's one. I'll just use 2 videos. We don't need to fill out the whole thing with proper videos. Okay, cool. So now I have 2 videos, and I want to publish some of these. So I got to publish this, and hey, wait a minute. It says published, but is published is false. Publish timestamp, not there. Uh-oh. What happened? Video all proxy. That's the problem. Okay, so now that we've got this embed, I do need to flush out some of my other embeds, but I also need to do another test inside of my videos, and it has to do with these receiver functions that you might have already fixed, but we just want to make sure that each one of our proxies is getting those receiver functions too, mainly for how they work in the admin, not for any other reason. So we save it now, and let's go ahead and make sure that this is published. I'll go ahead and save and continue. Sure enough, now it's actually working. Okay. As pretty much expected, but you know, every once in a while you get some errors. Oh no, we have a name error now. Video proxy is not defined in our admin. So I think because we used this right here, there should be video published proxy. Cool. Okay, so now we've got that. We've got our published videos in here. Go back into our Justice League one. That's not the correct video, or it's not actually rendering a video. So let's take a look at that movie. And I'll go ahead and just use the last object. I think that's the one that I had. And gives me videos coming soon. That's not it. Let's try 3. Still video coming soon. Oh yeah. Well, that makes sense. Well, going back into all of our videos, those 2 are not published. So let's go ahead and publish them. Okay. So this is another example of where our videos are working as intended, even though it might be a little frustrating that it's not working every single time I'm trying to do something. But now that we've got this, let's go ahead and change to that most recent object that I created. And there we go. So we can now actually see a video in here, and it's actually going to play as well. So of course there's more options that we could do with the embed itself. But what I want to do is display some of the other things, like in our shows. When we go to The Office, for example, we should be able to see The Office with the different seasons, and more specifically in the season or any given season, like season 1. This is giving us a page not found. I probably never actually solved that error with the slugs. So let's go ahead and change it to 11. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I don't have my slugs available on that one. And nope. Oh, yes. Haha, that's the wrong link. Should be seasons and season 1. Cool. So now in season 1, that actual template, we'll go ahead and jump into our, this is going to be our season detail template. Let's go back into our playlist proxy model for that item, and we've got get episodes. Okay, so that's their TV show season proxy, season detail. Now I'll go ahead and use for episode in object dot get episodes and end for, and then we'll do a div class here, and this is going to be episode dot get video ID. That should give us a bunch of item in here, and we're getting a query set object, or has no attribute published. Okay, so we need to check what's going on with that. So playlist item set dot all has no attribute published. Looks like I failed to add in objects here, and thus the need for some more testing to be done. But now we've got that. Okay, cool. So season 1 doesn't actually have any videos. So let's go into the seasons themselves. So season 1, and we'll go ahead and add some video objects in here. It looks like I do actually have some video objects going, but perhaps they're not published, even though I think they should be. So something going on. We'll check it out. And season 1 did not show any of these items here. So let's go back into our episodes themselves and do our query set equaling to that. Turn that query set, and let's print out that query set. I think I know what the problem is. We refresh, and sure enough, there they are. Problem is this is a playlist item. Okay. So playlist item.video.get video ID, and there we go. So now it's actually showing those video IDs. So naturally, with that in mind, we can now do with, or rather include the videos.video, or rather embed.html with video ID equaling to this, and close that off. There we go. Save that. Refresh. and now we have a bunch of videos. Okay, so I can say H3 is episodes, and that will give me the episodes all laid out one by one. So I could then do H5 episode, and this is playlist item.order. Episode 1, 2, 3, 4. Sweet. Okay, cool. So granted, now the season itself, I could probably have a video of some kind in here as like my season trailer. And then again, I would just come in and do trailer, grab this here, and then instead of playlist item.video, it's just object.getVideoID. Refresh in here, and now I've got that trailer. Okay. So there is like so many user interface things that we'd probably want to update for this. One of them being the actual links themselves, right? So I had to actually reverse all of those things. So I do want the links to show up. But now the shows are there and they're working. The Office, the show itself, probably needs this trailer. So let's go ahead and copy that, bring that into our show as well. Right, so again, we can still just use object ID. In this case, it doesn't actually have a trailer for this show, which we can very quickly change by going into that show, grabbing the object, any of those objects in there, save it, and refresh, and there's our trailer showing up. And of course, if I came back and made any of those videos to be a draft, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come in here and change this video to being a draft, save and continue editing. I refresh. Maybe that's the wrong video. Let's just keep making drafts here. There we go. So video's coming soon. And we now have a much more robust way to just display our videos or pull them at will. Cool. All right, so that's the video embed. I think at this point, one of the things that probably should be done, which I'm going to leave to you, is number one, doing better tests to ensure our video proxies are working, and then another test to actually ensure that our playlist item and its related manager items are working as well, like all the published state stuff. But that's going to go ahead and be something outside the context of what we're going to finish off with.